Welcome to Trust the Journey. I am Melanie Curtis.
Welcome to Trust the Journey.
Trust the Journey. Melanie Curtis, that's me.
And I'm Jason Moledzki, the last time I checked.
Thank God. Our mission is to live, laugh, love, and learn together with you.
We're here to create conscious connections, to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, trust, being real people, just being legit. Here we are, trusting the journey.
Absolutely. If you want to connect with us outside of the podcast, go to trustthejourney.today. That is our website. It's also our Instagram. We encourage you, if you get value out of the show or think somebody could, be served by listening to any of our episodes, please feel free to share that with them. We are hoping to reach more people. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. Give us 5 stars on all the podcast channels if you think we deserve it. If not, no worries. If you would love to expand the conversation with us or support the show, you can do that by donating on Patreon. So to do that, go to our website, trustthejourney.today, and the Patreon button is there. You can donate in any amount, and that will get you entry to our Trust the Journey family, which is that more intimate space where we share and support each other.
And we really want to send out a lot of love, gratitude, and appreciation to everybody who supports the program in any way, whether you shoot us a message and we chat a little bit and we feel that connection that comes from knowing that the work we're doing has some value, or whether you're somebody who's laying down some money and sending it to us via Patreon to help support. Those people are key to this. Everybody's key to this. We love your comments, your shares, your interactions. We love you. We're here to learn to love ourselves and love each other. And we want to send some love to Kimberly, because she makes it all happen behind the scenes. Our editor, Miss Joy Voice, is back there getting us edited, getting us produced, doing all of our snippets. You've probably seen some of our new audio snippets up on Facebook and Instagram. She's been buying that stuff. If you need help from her, she's available at KimberlyJoyVoice.com, and she could help you make your podcast as awesome as this one.
That ain't it the truth. Well, and since we have grown as a podcast, as a show, we've crossed some major milestones. We are now officially open to sponsorships and partnerships with brands. So it's time. If you own a company and you think your brand would be aligned with ours, please reach out, drop us a line, trustthejourney.today on Instagram, send us a DM. That's probably the best place to get in touch with us. Food for thought, planting that seed out there in the universe. We're looking for those partnerships and open to those discussions. If you want to reach Jay personally, you can find him on Instagram as well at jason_moledzki. And I'm on Instagram and all the stuff, but you can find all of my socials and content at melaniecurtis.com. So yeah, that's kind of what's up.
Yeah. We like talking. We like listening to ourselves talk. We like listening to each other talk. And we like talking with you. So today we're talking about what inspires us. What is inspiration? What gets us wanting to converse with other people? Why are we inspired? What is inspiration? Why is this the topic today?
I love this because basically, team, Jay and I were like, oh, what should we talk about? And we both were sort of uninspired. And we were like, we should just talk about inspiration, because there's plenty of things that I have in my toolbox around inspiration that I just scribbled down a totally awesome list of stuff that if I say nothing else, this will be a super high value show. And I also was like, I know that us talking will help me be inspired. The act of connection, the act of leaning into what's real, AKA, AKA I wasn't necessarily sure what to talk about, and just owning that simple act of allowing that humanity inspires me. Like, you can probably hear the energy in my voice right now, because that's a big deal to just say what's real. That is very, 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 very freeing. And for me, houses a lot of inspiration because I'm like, now I can just talk about whatever and see what naturally effuses from me. And there's some like real, there's just energy and life in that. And anyway, I love that. So that alone inspires me. But where would you start, my friend?
Well, the whole thing of not being afraid to be creative, like to share an idea. So I think one of the things that I value in a very big way, pardon me while I'm fussing around too, I'm just making sure everything stays plugged in. Part of the things that I value in the journey that I've been on is in the sport of skydiving, I've learned a lot about creativity. And because you come up with things, you're like, I have an idea and somebody else has an idea. And then you're just kind of bouncing ideas around. And some of our most, our greatest visionaries are people that are just really inspired people. They just have ideas that they want to go try and do something. And it might be pointless, silly, futile, failed. It might not have any value. It might be amazing, create a huge inspiration in the world and be something that nobody ever forgets from our generation. It could be on any end of the spectrum from completely mind blowing to that was really dumb. But the inspiration to just go and try something and go do something and go play, like this is the nature of humanity is curiosity, playfulness, and in that is inspiration to try things and to ask why and to be curious. It's fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a big point straight out the gates, as always. This notion of creativity as freedom and that we need to be brave, to be courageous, because it's like, it's one thing to say, don't be afraid to be creative. Well, what if you are afraid? Because I know a lot of people who are afraid to be creative and to lean into their creative pursuits. And I'm one of those people as I grow in my creative pursuits, even because I think bigger and thinking bigger and bigger and bigger about my creative ideas. So it's like, I feel like there's bravery in that stepping into that free space and that risk of judgment, all of those things that's connected to creativity. But the before even getting to that point, it's like, how do we get to the idea that inspires that desire, right? Because like, oh, I could have an idea, but where did I get it? You know what I mean? Like, where do those ideas come from that then motivate us and move us into that willingness to be brave enough to creatively express? Because I think one of the valid questions around inspiration is how do we get it? You know what I mean? Like if we want to find it in a creative end, what are ways that people can generate those bits of electricity in life from themselves?
Well, we're literally doing one of them right now, and that is the brainstorm session, where you sit with other people and you just start throwing ideas at the wall. And ideas, creativity is contagious, right? Inspiration is contagious. So somebody says something and you're like, oh yeah, I can, it hits you, you feel it, and you can contribute something. Or somebody throws something and you're like, meh, it doesn't really ring with me, but you know what might, and it triggers something that you know does have some inspiration for you. So brainstorming is a great one. I get them just out of the blue. I'm like in the shower and boom, ideas appear, or in my sleep, in dreams, like things just come out of nowhere. And I get them while I'm in flow states or quiet times alone, like driving in my car and just watching the road go by and creating, removing distractions and having a kind of a clear space to be within myself. Those are times where inspiration really occurs. I think those are probably my favorites. It's usually like hiking, biking, riding, driving, like some kind of movement. Yeah. That sounds super logical to me and typical, and also
very typical for me also. Stepping away from the thing that we're struggling to find inspiration around can be really useful, like that idea. One thing that's really...
How about...
No, go ahead.
Well, how about other people? Like, so here's a struggle point, right? Music. I'm working on some music. I'm struggling. I can't find the inspiration or writing. And I'm at a block somewhere. Let's go listen to other people's stuff. Mm-hmm. Go watch other things. Go read other things. Go listen to other stuff and get inspiration from other people's ideas. And that one's a winner for me.
That is definitely on my list. That is a huge one on my list, is that what is the quality of our brain food? Like I've been thinking about this. I did a little Instagram reel and just some stories about this as I was heading to Boston this week. I did a consulting gig in Boston, and I had that 5-hour drive to and from. And that space, I use it as a supportive space, as a space where I can listen to Audible books and I can listen to podcasts and I can bring in that quality brain food. You know what I mean? That gives me access to ideas, maybe helps me generate inspiration, helps me connect ideas and that I maybe otherwise wouldn't put together. That's a very rejuvenating space for me. And I'm pretty relentless when I talk about this, but this is one reason why I'm motivated to do a podcast is that I get so much value from listening to other people's sharing. It helps me so much come back to my own work. It helps my own work elevate. It helps me be of higher service to my clients. It helps me get creative inspiration. It is such a powerful source for me, that audio format, that it's just a really, really thing. I constantly recommend it to people in hopes that they'll get the same from it.
Yeah. I cherish my time where I can be in some form of movement, whether I'm traveling somewhere on a plane or in a car or hiking or walking or exercising, some type of movement, and being able to put my headphones in and absorb some information. It's so important to me that I will get angry or perturbed if somebody will want to chit chat with me when I'm like, no, this is my time. Like, this is the time where I'm going to engage, like my study hour or hours where I'm going to take in information and I'm going to get part of my mind going, which is going to help me make bigger decisions about my life direction and the things that are of value to me. I get edgy. I'm like, don't make me take my headphones out to talk to you. This is my time. Sorry, people.
Well, that actually.
Rude. I'm not really an ass. That's my time.
This is my time. I need it. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. So we've got that, like this alone thing. We've got this connection, you and me talking, that's connection, other people, right? We've got ideas, we've got our own time that's not connecting with other people, but it is sort of in a way because we're listening to other people's stories and stuff, but that's like a different version of connecting. The other thing that is high on my list, and I feel like I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's important to reiterate multiple times, I think, for me and hopefully others, is unstructured time. So I need lots of time where I don't have commitments so that I can let my creative genius out of its fucking cage.
Yes.
That's it.
Can I just say that I love that you said genius?
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because that's a word that we might be hesitant to use when referring to ourselves, because that could sound egotistical or arrogant or overly self-confident or just, snobby to say, no, this is genius. But when it comes to creativity, curiosity, inspiration, and play, genius is absolutely applicable to every single one of us.
Absolutely. Every single one of us. I could not agree more. I believe in that so ferociously. This is why freedom is probably my it's hard for me to hierarchically select values, but it's one of my most important and key values is this is freedom in various forms that it manifests. And I feel like I access true freedom when I allow myself to be deeply inspired and really actually go toward those things. Again, bravery, all the judgments want to come in. Oh, you're going to be rejected. Everyone's going to think you're this or that or or you'll fail. It won't work. You'll fall on your face. All of the monkey mind stuff that would want to keep us from following that inspiration. I have felt such deep fulfillment and bliss when I really go toward those ideas, those inspirations. And so that's why this is actually an inspired conversation for me, because if people want that same experience for themselves, and maybe not everyone wants that experience, and that's fine too. But that's why I care to talk about it, is to hopefully help other people find ways to access that for themselves.
So a little while ago, I read a quote from a good friend of mine, Omar Alegalan, had made this post, and he said in the post, he quoted a famous quote, which I'm sure almost all of us have heard before. Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Mm-hmm. And then he caveated it with the definition of a champion is somebody who is willing to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome and continue doing it until they get a different outcome. Oof. And I loved that because I related to it so deeply. I was like, oh, the hundreds of times of just failing. And so with what you were saying there, you're like, oh, well, what about this, like, a silly idea I have? It's not going to work. You're going to fall on your face. Yes, you are. You're going to fall on your face. Is it going to work? Nope, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. Am I going to trip and look like a fool? Yes, you are. And that's like the whole learning process. Like, those of us, like, the whole thing, you're like, it's 99% getting it wrong. And then eventually 1%, boom, you got it right. And you figure it out. And that's the joy of inspiration, is that literally the whole trust the journey modality that we believe in and that we preach from our soapboxes is that the value is in the process. The value is in the failures and the attempts and the goal setting and the not making it happen, not the actual achieving of the goal, but and not even the setting of the goal. I've been learning a lot about this. It's not the goal setting, because I could do that all day long. I'm not going to get me anywhere. I actually have to strive. And the striving towards the goal is really what the whole inspiration thing is about. That's the value. It's the strive.
An inspiration, because it gets so co-opted too. It gets really co-opted. Like if you're not inspired, somehow you're fucking up. If you're not inspired, or you're having a hard time, or just haven't found your passion. Like, those types of sentiments, I don't like how exclusionary they can feel. That's why I get so fired up about how do we actually get there, so that you can maybe have the experience of inspiration for yourself in the way that you might have it. That's why that part of the conversation resonates with me so much, is that I want to dispel that it is just for people who miraculously get inspired, or it's not for people who haven't felt it before. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's something really scary sometimes with that, where somebody tells a story, they've had this really like amazing life experience, or it can be in the realm of I've done something amazing, and I think it can be scary to let yourself believe that it could be you too. Like there's something brave in even believing that you could potentially get there. Does that make sense? Does that, you know what I mean?
It's scary to believe that we could succeed.
Yeah. And it's
definitely, it's terrifying. It's you. Every single day I'm afraid of succeeding.
Say more. Why?
Well, I think it's easier on our egos to like shut an idea down and fizzle out an inspiration, or like, but I'm not going to do that, because the idea that there's going to be pain involved in the failure, and there's going to be frustrations and losses and bloody knuckles and blood, sweat and tears kind of thing to get to something like that, your work, like some inspiration, is kind of intimidating. It's makes me want to say, maybe it's easier to just scroll. I'll just scroll some more. I'll just flip through this and distract myself with something than to be willing to put myself on the table for an emotional slaughtering, where I'm like, I'm gonna give myself up, and I know it's gonna hurt. So let's just not do that. But I think that's the thing between, like, does it actually feel better at the end of the day to just flip channels all night long, or endlessly waste my time, or does it feel better to strive towards some idea and make progress there, even if you're just sitting there spinning your wheels? The act of trying to do something seems to be more rewarding than not trying.
Yeah, I think
but I get it.
The willingness to experience emotional pain, the acceptance of that possibility, and the surrender to it gives us access to things that we wouldn't try otherwise. Like for me, the fear of success for me feels more rooted in like overwhelm. Like it doesn't feel rooted in lack of capability. I feel for some reason I have, earned, or in certain lanes of my life. I don't necessarily have this in every lane of my life, but in a lot of lanes of my life, I feel like I have really gotten to a place where I believe I can do pretty much anything. And it's good because I can then apply that to other lanes of my life where I'm struggling to feel that, right? Where I still feel like I'm just kind of trying to figure it out. But in the lanes where I already have success, perceptible success, where I'm engaged, things are happening, I'm having opportunities, that then comes in the sense that, oh God, but if I'm more successful, it'll be harder. I'll be too overwhelmed, or this or that. When I think that's a limiting belief, I really do. And I think if I look at inspiration in a pure sense, it's easy. It's really easy. When I'm genuinely inspired and connected in that flow, it feels easy. And that is not something that I necessarily allow myself when I'm working hard, or when I think that energy can be infused in other places. I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like I'm just kind of rambling, but I feel like there's something there. There's something to that,
The difference between having the idea, like coming up with an idea, being stimulated by something triggering, whether it's conversation or witnessing something, the conceptual idea of inspiration, and then the initiation to create whatever it is. So that's, I think there's a thing in here that I can reflect on with what you're talking about is there's a lot of things I have ideas for, and then I have to select which ones I'm actually going to execute on or attempt to execute on.
Yep.
And then for how long am I going to attempt or is it viable? Because I've learned in my early life, I would get excited about things and I might dive into something. And then all of a sudden I've got a project on the go and I haven't really scoped out the full extent of what I've gotten myself into. And it might dead end or lose attention, or I might hit some roadblock within my emotional skill set or my physical skill set or financial or whatever it is. So this isn't really like around the goal, like achieving a goal, but it's this thing of like inspiration versus action. And then that, because I mean, we come up with ideas all day long.
They are two different things. I've said this a million times. Inspiration is nothing without the action to back it up. It doesn't become anything. I mean, it's not nothing per se. It's a feeling, but it really isn't anything unless it inspires and motivates action. It doesn't turn into anything. It's just a fleeting emotional, mental experience. Right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I feel like it is. The distinction of what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think art is a great example of that. So I have ideas for art all the time. And then how many of them do I execute on is very, very few, because there's a lot of limiting factors maybe in what I have available as far as my own time or resources, or like when I start to assess the viability of actually following through on one of these ideas, like, am I able to execute it or not? Or what is how much value am I going to get from the actual experience of attempting to follow through and create it versus just the playful fun of coming up with the idea. Sometimes just the idea making in itself is just all it ever needs to be. Like, oh, wouldn't that be fun if we did this? And then, we're not going to do that because it's not really going to be fun to do it.
Well, I think that's a really important point, is that not every inspiration needs to be acted upon. Not every inspiration theoretically could be acted upon unless they're low in number. But if they're high in number, it's certainly understandable that we wouldn't act on everything. And I think that even could be a place where people would be harboring judgment. Oh, I have all these great ideas, but I don't act on any of them, and sort of bring in these.
I do that to myself all the time.
Like when it's not true. It's just not true. We have a lot. I have a ton of ideas. You could look at my desk. It's scribbled with notes, of course, as always. A million ideas all the time. And what percentage makes it through, who cares? Doesn't really matter. But I think that's a learning point and a skill to build and a mindset to cultivate also, is to not beat ourselves up around the ones we don't pursue when we do find them.
I thought a lot about this. I am the kind of person who comes up with ideas for stuff all the time. Very vision kind of person. And I could write down enough ideas in a day to take the next 10 years. But there's no way I'll ever get them done. So at some point in time, I started to realize, as I started getting more gray hair, that I'm like, I might not actually get around to a lot of the things that I imagine myself doing, because I'm going to run out of time to actually do them. And so the whole inspiration versus action, debate starts to come up more. And I'm curious to ask you a question, which is, what are some of the big driving factors or key things that come up? Like, how do you decide what things to take from an idea or an inspiration and actually move them into the action pile and start getting to work on them and doing something?
Well,
what's at the base of that? What's down deep in there?
What's down deep in there? I love having pro mics. They're so fun. That's a great question. And I don't necessarily have a super systematic thing. I recently took the Enneagram test. Have you ever taken that?
I have.
Your
yeah.
Enneagram? Do you know what you are?
ENTJ.
Oh, no, that's a different thing. It's like the Enneagram 5 or 7 or whatever.
I'm a 1.
Oh, you are? I don't even
Yeah.
know what it means. Like, listen, I'm not an Enneagram person. I just, for people that are listening that are, it was a very interesting, fascinating. I haven't even fully read through the results yet, but I'm going to. I'm very interested in it because it resonated with me a lot. Where I'm in a mastermind group, and a couple of the other women in the group took the test, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm an Enneagram 7, where they're like really type A, they're high achievers, they're rock stars. And I resonate with them a lot. I love their energy. I love how much they get done. I love all of that about them. And so before I had taken the test, I'm like almost anticipating, oh, well, maybe I'm a 7, maybe I'm like, because I'm kind of like them. And, and then the results.
Yes, I do. I've done the exact same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So the results came out, and I'm actually a 4, and it's a very heart-centered, creative person. And so it really brought me back to, with sharp quickness, it brought me back to that creative center, that creative core of me, where that can get so lost when I am in, and so deprioritized in a really just sucky way, where it doesn't get its airtime. It doesn't get seen. It doesn't get nurtured when I'm really just working and sending emails. And again, I love connecting with humans. So there's a lot to be said in why I do that. But the reason I brought this up in regards to this conversation around inspiration is that you ask, how do I determine? And I'll tell you, getting those test results really brought me back and was like, I got to start making more decisions with this part of me in mind. And I haven't for a while. I haven't been writing. My book published, the Audible book's done. I've took a break from writing because it's a sweet, sweet, painful fucking torture. Every writer knows that, right?
Yep.
And I took a break. I haven't done a photo shoot, which is another version of like the artistic expression of creating fashion and energy inside of a photograph with me as the subject. I love that version of artistic expression. I haven't done that in a while. And so I don't know if this answers your question per se, but I feel like it's in the vein of answering it, that as of now, I'm really very intentionally, consciously looking for ways to honor and action the creative, heart-centered part of me that really is at my center.
That's awesome.
Thank
that
you.
kind of answer really, it's like ring the bell for me. Because I want to get to that deeper question. And this is one of the things I've been doing in myself a lot lately, is asking why. Why would I do this job? Or why would I do that job? Or why would I get up and do anything today?
Yeah.
And it's because I've suffered with depression through my whole life, and massive bouts of depression, really challenging periods of time where inspiration is at like a -3.
Yep.
Where I'm like, I am inspired to lay on this couch and stare at Netflix all day long today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And the true self, like the part of me that's going to action and inspiration, is only going to do so if it's really something that I value or need to do for myself. So, some people say, oh, you're so lucky, you've got the life that you've created a life for yourself, or this or that. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? This sucks. I've had a torturous time, because the only way that I ever do anything is as if I actually am like motivated enough to do it. And it may look like I do a ton of stuff or I've had some amazing experiences, but it's rare in my own journey inside myself.
Yep.
I'm tossing ideas out the window all the time because I could care less, because they don't have a value. Like, things used to be a lot more valuable. And as I've gotten older and had more experiences, that the value prioritization tree has shifted all around.
Yep.
And where I used to put money as a high priority, I've never cared about money. I just don't. I don't value money because it's just not something that I embolize as having value. It's a really great tool to have in your toolbox because it'll help you to do stuff, but doesn't make you a better person in any way, shape, or form. Probably make you a worse person. And so where I make my decisions, how do I end up actioning an inspiration? What gets me off the couch when I've been there for a week and just can't get my ass in gear is listening to those deeper inner voices. It's going with gut instinct and truly asking myself what I want. And it's challenging because being these emotional beings that we are at any point in any day of our lives, we could be having anger or having joy or feeling rejected or feeling super accepted. And we could be on any side of any of the ball anywhere. And if you were in a place that, leans us in one direction, it's really easy to make a decision because we're feeling a certain way at that time. But it might not be our true gut instinct about what we need to do. So I'm going to do a quick reflection here. I'll do a little storytelling session. I just finished a period of time traveling in Norway. It's something I've been very passionate about. It's been a decision that I've made year in and year out to continue to go back to a place that's very expensive. It's a huge investment of time and energy. There's a lot of unknowns. And what I do when I'm there is very risky. Mm-hmm. So there's fear and there's unknown and there's a bunch of stuff involved that's really, emotionally taxing. And there's some deeper questions around whether I want to keep doing it or not. Yeah. And the decision that I made, the most recent decision I made to go back and return to Norway for a period of time was based in waking up in the middle of the night and getting that I need to go do this. I just need to go do this. Mm-hmm. I gotta make a shift in where I am right now, an energetic shift in my patterns and my routines, put myself in another place, get into another structure that I know is going to help get my head clear. And now I'm there. I've made that I followed my gut to this place, and I'm doing the things that I want to be doing while I'm there. And so here's the conundrum. I find myself walking up to an exit point to make a jump that I've been excited to make or plan to make. And then do I really want to?
Yeah.
Am I inspired? Maybe the inspiration was there before, right, but is it there today? And is the value actually that I'm feeling in the moment? Am I just going through the motions, or am I actually valuing what I'm doing? And so I had a 3 strikeout in a row, week where I went to go do a jump and I turned around because of weather. I was I don't think it's going to work. But I was really inspired. This one was a big one. I was really inspired to go do it. And I felt, motivationally, yeah. It took a lot of money, time, energy, planning, effort, teamwork, all these things. And then I have to pull the pin. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, nature. I hear you. I'm respecting you. My gut, my ego wants me to go do it, but I have to respect that this isn't going to happen at this time unless I push myself into a place that I know isn't a good decision. So I back off, and then I go to do something else, and it's easy to do. It requires very little effort. You can just be blim, blim, jump on a cable car, and you're there. And I'm standing there and going, do I really want to do this? And my instinct is like, I don't want to do this at all. Like I have no desire at all. My draw, my fire, my inspiration, the inspiration, this part of me that wants to come out isn't there for that. That's not what I'm there for. And so as I fully geared up and still walk up to the edge and I walk back. And so it's like, nah, blech. I'm going to take this thing off. And then I actually felt like really moody and crappy and was like really emotionally just down. And then take everything off. I actually just rode a cable car down. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back down. And part of that was there's a few things in here is part of it was with respect to giving some heed, some respect, paying some attention to, we don't always have to do things that we may think we have to do. Like, okay, I made plans months ago. I traveled across the ocean. I built this whole skill set. I've done it here. I've got myself to this place. I'm literally on the exit point. There's virtually no reason why I shouldn't jump right now, except I'm not feeling inspired to do it. So I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I might have previously pressured myself into thinking I should do it because even though I'm not feeling inspired, I did all those other things to put myself in a place to be able to do it.
That is the sunk cost fallacy.
Exactly. Exactly. So I walk away from that. Okay. So here I have the two mirrors, right? The one that I'm trying to get this other one for 10 years. And I have to go back down, and then I have one right in front of me, which I've done dozens of times, and I just don't care. I just don't want to do it.
Right.
It's not inspiring at all.
Yep.
And then I'm back away, and I have a week of weather come in, and I'm tied to just moving to do other things. You know, I can't continue on that path of trying to achieve some of the goals I had for myself or the inspirations that are there. And then the next one that comes around ends up being similar to the other one where I'm like, I really want to go do it. It sounds exciting and fun. It's been on my list for a long time. And then the weather is just not cooperating. So I have to accept that that maybe sometimes the things I want aren't what I need or aren't what I'm going to, aren't the universal alignment for what I need to receive, and what I want aren't in place.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not really what I want.
Yeah. But
right?
that's an insightful existential question for sure. I think there's a difference. There's a subtle distinction. Not that I know what this distinction is per se, but I feel like there is a subtle distinction between inspiration and motivation. Motivation can be driven by a multitude of things. Inspiration, I feel like, is the purity of source. That's how I understand those words. And again, it's just language. People can make it mean whatever they want. But that's when I hear the word inspiration comparatively to motivation, that is the distinction that I make.
Yeah. So inspiration is, okay, so motivation is actually dopamine. Right? Dopamine is like the driving force for us to do anything. It's all dopamine. And inspiration is like a creative thing, right? Where we're like, there's an idea, not a motivator. It's not the one that pushes you to go do it. It's the idea itself.
Yes.
Right? And I don't know what chemical or what process actually triggers that, like, neurosynapse to come up with creating ideas.
One of the things that was on my list from sort of the earlier part of the conversation that I want to share, because I think it is potentially useful, it is for me, is when we're struggling to source inspiration or have a new thought or a new idea come about, or we're trying to access that feeling, I encourage people to do things outside of what they normally do. So you might not be super stoked to do the thing, whatever specific thing it is, but doing anything outside of what you normally do gives you sort of this dose of newness, of novelty, which can bring inspiration with it, because it then allows your brain to connect things that are readily available, that are quote normal, that are your go-tos, with something new. And in that connection of unlikely pairings of ideas can be an inspiration around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I kind of do that in the kitchen.
Cool.
Where I'll like try, okay, I always have, bacon and eggs. But then one time I'm going to go, maybe I should have bacon and chocolate. And try, because you're like, or you're forced, you're like, what's in here? Does this and this work together?
Right, right.
And so you get those unusual pairings, like you're saying, and then that is where creativity spawns. So who would have ever thought that balsamic glaze and watermelon are so good together? They're amazing, but it's one of those things where you're like, vinegar and watermelon. Somebody was just getting creative and going for it. They were inspired maybe by a lack of resources or maybe by an abundance, but either way, that's the fun and inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, I always bring up my photo shoot in New York with my skydiving gear, because that's a perfect example of those things, of two unlikely ideas becoming this interesting creative inspiration for me that I followed through till the end. And so, for me, if I look at that, I go, okay, that's one lane of where I derive but use and apply and action on my inspiration, is this photo shoot artistic expression thing. But I'm like, what else could it look like? Even going into wondering, like allowing ourselves into the space of wondering can be really, really potentially expansive, because the human brain wants to know the answer. Chronically wants to know the answer and have certainty, to be comforted by certainty and knowing. And so to even just practice being in the space of wondering can be really useful as it relates to inspiration, but we just have to intentionally go to that place. Like if you ask yourself the question, what would it look like if I, quote, thought bigger about my life? And then just allowed yourself to wonder. For me, like, what would my next level of creative artistic expression look like? And I've sort of allowed myself to wonder about that. And I'm like, okay, what idea would I want to attach to this thing? Would I want to attach some kind of social impact message? Would I want to, express my femininity in a different way than I have before? It's just like allowing myself to go there is, I think, really important. Otherwise, you can just get really unconsciously, inadvertently couched by what your brain allows you to think about.
I was going to say the exact same thing earlier on. It's a practice, right? The idea of being curious, of being creative and becoming inspired is a practice. It's something that we have to flex that muscle on a regular basis for it to be something that we can lean on. If we don't do it with any regularity, if we don't practice it, then we're not going to be practiced at it. So it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel like trying to climb a hill when you're out of shape. You're going to be like, oh, no, this sucks. This is really hard.
Absolutely.
So it is about creating regular opportunities. And I'll be honest with you. My daily meditation routine is inspired. It's very interesting. I meditated twice today. I will meditate again, probably right after this call, because it is late at night here. And the idea that I'm going to be observant to my own thoughts is really inspiring because my thoughts are, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this because I know I'm not the only crazy one out there. People, my thoughts are all over the freaking show. Things are just like, one second I'm like down this thought about this person, and then suddenly I'm in another country with another thing, and then I'm back in the back of my head in this thing of my past, and then there's something about my future, and then there's something I was watching, and I'm just all over the freaking show, right? It's everywhere. And all of a sudden I catch myself and I'm like, holy smokes, Jay, that was like a 2-second window where suddenly you thought about 10 different things. And it's inspiring to me to be able to just even be aware of that. Right?
Absolutely.
That is, it just blows my mind. And in the meantime, I'm coming up with a rainbow tutu outfit for the next performance that I've got creating in my mind. And that one I'm actually actioning on.
Oh my God, I love it. I want to see that rainbow tutu in action. I want to see it. I want to see it. Yeah. Oh God. Well, meditation is a great version of unstructured time. It's a great version. That's exactly of that.
It, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's creating that unstructured, like creating that placeholder, that container, creating a container.
Yes. It's so important. And one of the things that I noticed too is, like, for example, you're like, oh God, it's late at night. Blah. And I'm like, oh my God, it's late at night and it's 5:14, but I'm tired. Like, I've been yawning. I've been trying to keep the audio out of the podcast, but I've been yawning throughout this whole show.
I'm trying to keep my eyes open.
Yeah. Like, oh God, sorry. There it is.
Keeping it real right here, folks. This is legit. Putting in the time.
Oh, wow. That was a good one to let myself just do it. Oof. But why I brought that up is, like, this is something I noticed that blocks me from inspiration is I'll work so hard. I'll have so many calls, and then I'll just be like so stoked for the unstructured time. But then it'll be for the flop and just fall down and be exhausted. And if I don't allow enough of it, I never get to the place where the inspiration can find me because I'm just recovering from the expenditure and the effort, which is a good expenditure and effort. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing my work ethic and all the things that I do. I'm more just being mindful of what works and what doesn't, what allows me access to inspiration and what doesn't. I can accept not having access to inspiration if I want to get really hardcore and get stuff done and be really type A on my stuff, really 7 Enneagram person, right? And then there's another part of me that's like, oh, okay, if I allow too many of those things, then I'm only going to be over here where I can't access inspiration. And I'm just going to have my unstructured time be recovery. So I can do that all over again versus being like having enough unstructured time, meditation, rest, recovery, then extra space where I can wonder, inspiration can find me.
So I absolutely, like, you're dead on the money there. And I think the one word that's missing from that dissertation there is play.
Yeah.
Structured time that is held for play is just so powerful, right? So there's so many versions of it, whether your play is exercising or whether your play is getting creative with some media of some kind, a paintbrush, or, out in the yard, making, planting, growing. There's a million versions of what play can look like, but holding space and making a container for creativity. And now you've got some action, something that's going to be occurring. Today, I flew paragliders for a number of hours. And in that is a very simple concept. We're going to go to a location, we're going to launch, we're going to fly, and we're going to land, and we're going to pack them up and we'll go home. Okay, that's a simple breakdown. But what happens in there is a whole bunch of space is held for playfulness.
Yeah.
And I can learn, I can explore, I can interact, I can make mistakes, and I can make recoveries, and I can be surprised. And there's all this, and then all of a sudden there's things that just playfulness just starts happening. And then with that playfulness, like poof, like an idea comes, an inspiration, and then we find the whole flow state. I think that's kind of what I want to get us to, is like this, we're really good at everybody. This is not me or Mel. This is us as humans. Humans are really good at playful action, at being creative as a result of play. We do things as children, like interacting and coming up with stuff, and that never changes as adults. We just have to make sure we keep holding space for that to continue happening and not let ourselves get overwhelmed with what we think we should be doing.
Yeah.
Filling up our time.
Yeah. Well, and play inherently does not require any outcome. It doesn't require any outcome, any specificity of outcome. And that's a really important distinction, really, really important, because inspiration, we've talked a lot about actioning ideas and moving toward it. And that's the part of us that really likes that part of ourselves. I think that does like to create an action and achieve and do and grow and all those things. Play is a really beautiful balance to that, where we're just allowed to be. We're just allowed to play. We're just allowed to do whatever. I couldn't agree and echo that more.
Yeah. It's really wonderful, actually, when we find ourselves in a playful, I think it's a presence, a playful presence, where we're present to whatever our curiosity is, whatever our playful nature is, whatever our inspired is. And we become engaged in a way where we let go of ideas of constraint or structure about who, what, where, when, how, and we're just there in it. And it can come in so many ways. There's just thousands of ways to access it, from, riding a bicycle to flying a kite to just anything at all, writing a book, reading a book, talking to somebody,
dancing down the sidewalk,
making your coffee creatively.
Yeah. Totally. With your animal. Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
Really great.
Matilda
There's a little
loves
three-legged dog here.
Oh.
There's always the three-legged dog, some at drop zones or landing sites, or there's always the guy with the three-legged dog, and he flies with his dog and everything.
Oh, cute.
So cute.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to round out, is this notion of play and surrendering to that, and letting ourselves let go. And it's just, yeah. I'm
inspired to play. Making
the space for it. Fuck yes. I'm just like letting myself imagine and think about what I'm going to do. It's just, and I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. It's not present, but you know what I mean? It's just because we don't tend to make time for it. I love that. I love that sort of refrain from the whole episode, is that structured time, like the space for the unstructured whatever, Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, my friend, any final thoughts before we go?
Well, I mean, I started to just kind of think on that for a second, and immediately I felt gratitude. Like I was just breathing in there, and I was just like, oh yeah, the thing of like taking time to just be engaged with playfulness, creativity, and from that inspiration, and from that action, and from that a life that is lived well.
Yeah. It's one thing to talk about it, my friends. It's another to do it and allow ourselves to do it. So please, if you're inspired by anything we said, do it for yourself. You know what I mean? For reals. Yeah.
Awesome.
Any final thoughts, my dear?
I would like to send some gratitude out to all of our listeners. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. You guys are the bomb. The Trusted Journey family is awesome. And I really, truly appreciate the inspiration that I see in that group. It's awesome when people drop their shares in there and share what they've been doing and who they are and what's motivated. And I'd love to hear from you guys in there if you want to jump on about this episode.
Yeah, please.
And if you'd like to be part of that group, you can donate on Patreon in any amount, and that will get you into the Trusted Journey family.
Yeah, and find that.
Invite you to do so.
Yeah, we do invite you. We super invite, right? We haven't said super invite in a long time. We super invite. What's up? But yeah, go to the website to do that. Family, trustthejourney.today. That's Instagram as well. Jason_Moledzki on Instagram. Me, melaniecurtis.com. But we really just love you, and we're so grateful that you spend your time with us and your energy on listening and sharing and doing whatever it is that you are inspired to do. So we love you all, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank that car share I got the other day. I'm inspired to share their cars. I was like, yeah, cool. Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go team.
Love you.